Shane, I can't hear you.
I was just doing a little dance. What do you think?
That was a good dance move, man. Not bad.
Oh my God! Arms swinging. What the hell? That's funny. So I changed the camera on you. I feel like I'm in a cave now. This. We'll figure it out. It doesn't matter. Thank you, man. It's good to see you, dude.
Man, it's good to see you. Thank you for everything, and thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate it, man. All right. So this is our second go round, right? The first one was actually a lot of fun. I got some good feedback on it. We were able to share some stuff after the event. So I appreciate you running it back with me, man. But this is one of those things that the audience begins to build as we get talking. So really this introduction is going to be for folks that we end up sending the video to after we shoot this. But for those of you who don't know who Milton is a partner of mine. I think Milton, we've been on the same team now for about 6 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, 6-7 years. Milton heads up our national renovation team and program. He is a leader to a renovation team that supports our retail sales franchise. He has been an educator of the industry at events, holding seminars around the country as well, and is really kind of a known force within the renovation space of retail mortgage banking. So much so that Milton won't talk about this because he doesn't brag on himself. But the team that you have, Milton, if I'm not mistaken, you guys were #1 in renovation in 2020 by like a long shot, right?
Yeah. We're the #1 203K lender in the country. HUD puts out their stats. We're #1 for the last 2 years. We're very fortunate, blessed, and we're #1 year to date. So
congratulations, man. Seriously, very, very cool. Very well deserved. I mean, you work your ass off. But really what I love about what you do in this space is it's not really just all about renovation. I mean, you are truly educating on how to just serve your community, your borrowers, your referral partners as a whole. And renovation just happens to be one of those components of it. And that's what's so unique about you is when you talk and you speak, it's not just renovation stump pitches. It is I'm going to educate you on this, and it's going to be a weapon of how you can grow your business and your relationships. But really, we're going to talk about how you can do just more business in general, serving your communities, and it serves well. So I appreciate you doing that, man. So last time we got real tactical. We didn't really talk about the market that we exist in. We really kind of the old school. If I want to start getting into reno, how can it get me, certain realtors and certain borrowers and certain CPAs? This time, because the world around us is kind of changing. Right. Markets change really fast. We've got inventory constraints. Product changes are happening in our industry. I really want to talk about the world that we exist in today. And obviously, if we can do a little bit of forecasting, let's do it. But the world that we're in today and how renovation can help. Because, Milton, with my role, I'm talking to too many people on a daily basis. And for example, one of the things that is just constantly coming up right now. And almost every conversation is, we know purchase is the market. We know purchase is going to be king. Rates have changed. Refis are already starting to drop a little. But within that purchase market, we've got a big kind of elephant in the room. That is, we have no inventory.
That's right.
Inventory doesn't exist. Builders aren't keeping up. I mean, builders are selling lots well ahead. We can talk to Mike Surgis about that later. And so in a limited inventory environment, from talking with you, renovation is a solve there. It's a solution there. Can you talk a little bit about that, and kind of what you're seeing as how renovation can play a role in this limited inventory market?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Shane. And it is a solve, right? Because the dynamics that we're seeing at play here is prices are rising, inventory is shrinking, and you may see a rise in interest rates that would also put a little pinch on a borrower's qualifying. So you add all that together, you couple that with the pandemic and the restraints that that's put on. Um, you have to understand that renovation loans really create markets, right? So it's really not so much, when we're guiding our customers and we've pre-approved them, we often find that in the neighborhood or the subdivision that they're looking in, they can't find something that suits their needs at their price point. And that's why you see a lot of pre-approvals that end up falling out. Maybe the customer gets frustrated and says, you know what, I'll wait till next year, or, I'm just going to put it on hold right now. It's not, they just can't find what they're looking for. And that happens quite a bit. Reno loans help you create what you're looking for, right? So we tell customers, look, stop trying to find the perfect home, right? Find the perfect neighborhoods, school district, subdivision will make it the perfect home. And what ends up happening is now, if you have somebody pre-approved for say 300,000 and they can't find something for 300,000, maybe they can find something for 250 that they can make perfect for themselves, that they would have otherwise not considered because it didn't suit their needs. So renovation loans create transactions, they create market share, and at the end of the day, the positive impact on the community is immeasurable, right? I mean, it's massive, because coupled with that, now you have consumers that can go out and buy a home that maybe needs a lot of work. Maybe it's exactly where they want it to be. Maybe they're able to do some of that work, but it really has a profound impact and shines when you have a tight market like this.
Well, it's a killer line too. I mean, if you're talking to a real estate office or a realtor in general, look, renovation is going to create market share for you. It's going to create opportunity. It's going to create market. It's going to create transactions. Whatever however you want to word it, that is a really good, succinct way of putting it, which is really nice. And then the other thing that you bring up that I've heard you talk about before is, the number one item on a person's house wish list isn't the house, right? The number one deciding factor they have is the community, right? Where do I want to live? What is the school district I want my kids to be in? And then the house comes second.
That's right.
And so within that home buying process, in a limited inventory environment, if somebody really wants to be in a school district, if you can get the realtors on board to understand, hey, renovation is not really hard. It's not much different than the other government-based programs I'm doing. It's going to open up the opportunity for realtor to close on this transaction for the people trying to move into this community. Yeah, it's awesome. Now, with that, you've got two parties you got to get on board with this, right? This might have been a family that was hoping to move into a move-in ready home. So we'll start with that party. How, if you're an originator, you're working with these borrowers and pre-approvals, how are you talking to them about the renovation program itself to get them open to the idea of maybe buying a $250,000 house in a market where they expected to spend $3 million, as you just said?
Yeah, well, essentially, it's part of controlling their expectations. And you have to be mindful of the fact that a lot of customers when they're in that house hunting mode, they're also in that HGTV do-it-yourself network mode, right? Where they're watching these shows and they're seeing the dream, and it makes them emotional, and they want that, right? And they think that's out there and that's what I want, until they walk in and they see the exact opposite. They see the before, they never see the, when they're out there, they're not really seeing the after, right? And so when they see the before, they don't realize what it takes to get to the after, and we want to prepare them for that, and we let them know that it's an opportunity. And the way we do that is, guiding them as they're going through the home buying process or home finding process, is letting them know, hey, listen, you might find something that needs a little bit of work and a little bit of repair. And maybe you want to do some cosmetic updates. No worries. If you need some extra money, let me know. We can roll in the extra money and you could do those repairs or updates after closing. Because now, guys, when the client walks into that house, the immediate thing they're thinking about in the reality, in the world we live in now, what they're thinking about is, do I want to use my savings to update this kitchen? because I can't stand it. And by letting them know that there's another option to it, okay, that you could finance the updating of the kitchen. Then all of a sudden you're making the dream come true because it's in the school district they want their kids to go to, or it's in the suburb that's close to their employment. You know what I mean? And so just letting them know it's an option for the homeowner is key.
Yeah. Do you ever do, you mentioned the HGTV, literally last night I'm watching Rock on the Block or Block on the Rock. I don't know. One of the HGTV shows, my wife, it is a nightly experience in my house, but do you ever, when you're dealing with, consumers, because again, like you said, they had in their mind that they're going to walk into one thing and then maybe they're going to have to walk into another to get into that neighborhood. Do you ever do things like before and after pictures? You know what I mean? Like, hey, by the way, just so you know, this is, a client of mine that just went through renovation. This is what they walked into. This is what it ended up being. Do you ever do things like that?
Yes. And it's great that you bring that up because the home buyer, right? The home search experience is all visual, right? They're online, they're looking at photos. Sometimes they don't get all the photos, right, of the inside of the house. And they watch these shows and they see the before and afters, and we kind of have to do the same, right? And so when that opportunity presents itself, you definitely want to be in a position to show, look, here's some of the things we've done in the past that you may be able to do. It doesn't have to be extreme. It can be very simple, right? Yeah. But you want to show that to them and make that a part of your conversation. And it's not so much, it's basically putting them in the best possible position, right?
Okay.
And finding the right house, like we say, right? We tell them, stop trying to find the perfect home. Get into that perfect area. We'll make it the perfect home. And that's kind of it's part of that process.
I like that. You could, and I actually, and then we'll move on to the realtor side of this, because one of the things that you're really good at is taking this kind of big ecosystem, but then when you're at, and we'll talk long-winded, like you and I could go hours on this,
right?
But when you're actually talking to the borrowers, you don't. Like you really kind of boil these things down to shorter scripts, right? Like 1 sentence, 2 sentence type approaches.
That's right.
So with that, not to can it, but if you were to teach a canned script of, if you're a producer in a low inventory market and you want to get your borrowers at least thinking about renovation, what is that script? What are you instructing originators to tell a borrower?
Yeah. So every pre-approval that I issue to a customer, I let them know that Mr. and Mrs. Jones, here's your pre-approval. Congratulations. And now let me preface it by saying, we know that we understand the tight housing market. You understand all the dynamics going on, right? So I explained to them, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, congratulations. Here's your pre-approval. If you find a house, it needs a little bit of work, some updating or some repair, don't worry about it. Let me know. We can roll in the extra money that you need and you can do those updates or repairs after closing. Now, that's it. But here's the thing, Shane. What we do not say to the customer is 203K renovation concern. They don't need to hear that. They're already overwhelmed with the process. So it is a simple process, but for decades, people have made it complicated for their own self-worth, companies and originators. At the end of the day, it's simple, and that's exactly all you have to tell them, so that when they walk in and they see those dated bathrooms, right, and they see that garage that needs repair, instead of thinking to myself, well, you know what, where am I going to get the money to do this, and do I want to use my money? They're going to say, you know what, Milt said he could roll in some extra money. Let me talk to him about it, right? Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't, but that's the hidden gem, the value of these loans and how they impact communities and how you capture market share.
Yeah. Well, and what you said is honestly the lesson that we need to learn, not just in renovation, but in everything. I mean, you know me, right? I'm the company's kind of data guy. And for whatever reason, I've fallen into the tech stuff as well. And I get so into the weeds with these things. And then I go to talk and explain, and I want to share like everything. Nobody wants to hear it. They tell me how it's going to impact me. I'm the end user. I don't care about the story of how we got here. Just give me the 1, 2, 3, and I'll move on. And whether you're talking about renovation, you're just talking about the mortgage in general, right? They don't care about LTV, but they just want to know that you have product options and it's going to be easy for them, and communicating on that. So yeah, that's awesome, man. Now, realtors, so there's a good segue. Because of what you just said, in that the industry has historically made renovation sound like this loan that you can only do on Mars, and to get there is like this just exorbitant process.
That's right.
Realtors are afraid
Right.
to leverage renovation. They just want easy, right? What is a realtor's goal? Get to the transaction as quickly as possible, as simply as possible.
Right.
So how are you unwinding that? How are you tearing down that wall in today's market? Because it's needed, right? An originator's job is not to manage a lot of buyer or shoppers. An originator's job is to help buyers buy homes. So that means you need to get the realtors on board as well. What are you doing with realtors to get them on board and understanding that renovation is not a complicated product and something that they can use in their arsenal?
So your valid point, Shane, because there is a lot of not just incorrect information, but a lot of realtors have been corrupted essentially by just companies and originators that either don't offer it or don't understand it. And I get it, right? But they think that the home won't qualify, right? When we do a 203K, which is an FHA renovation loan, we often are calling the listing agent, which is a great opportunity, by the way. But we call the listing agent because the listing agent is telling us, hey, the home's not going to qualify for an FHA. Well, it does, because it doesn't have to meet minimum property standards, does not have to meet health and safety standards. You could fund on this loan with standing water in the basement, or the house is full of black mold, every inch of it. It doesn't matter. You'll fund on it. And so what we explain to them is that these loans actually complete transactions. Mortgages complete transactions. Renovation loans create transactions, okay? And they're going to help you complete this transaction in the sense that, what was not marketable, or where the seller was unwilling to make the repairs, right? Or the borrower unable to come out of pocket for those repairs, we've solved that problem. And so we train nationally. I speak to realtors across the country weekly, and we teach them and we show them the actual before and afters. I mean, we show them extremes just so they understand if we can handle an extreme on a 30-year FHA or a 30-year conventional, then your chipping and peeling paint or your broken window or your mold is not an issue ever, right? And so once they understand that, the value prop of these loans is really to the realtor's reputation, right? Because they work so hard, and their biggest commodity is their time, and you're bringing them a better quality of life by protecting that.
Yeah.
And so once they see that and the light goes off, it's an amazing thing, and that's how we do it, and getting that word out to them.
So are you seeing, even in this COVID environment, that the education seminars to realtors, real estate offices around renovation, is that something that they're participating in right now? Are they hungry for this type of experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the dynamics of the entire market are shifting, right? And because of COVID, but they need that little shift in the way they approach things, and renovation does that for them and makes them more effective, and it improves their conversion rates and it protects their transactions. So yes, they're all over it.
So when you say conversion rates, do you mean that like a deal's kind of falling apart, so it's a non-reno deal, but then you're using reno to save it, or how is it increasing the conversion?
Exactly. That's it. That's exactly it. Renovation loans are a natural hedge against a realtor's pipeline of transactions, because if something goes bad on the appraisal, and we see it all the time in this market, we're seeing all parties, sellers, buyers, and both agents are basically willing to overlook something, hoping the appraiser maybe overlooks something, right? And so they're just thinking, let's write it in, let's get this house under contract, maybe we'll go back to the seller. So people are doing some pretty extreme, they're taking an extreme approach to lock into a house and hopefully solve the problem later, knowing it exists, and renovation solves that problem, right?
That's awesome.
So it protects their transactions when something goes sideways, and now all of a sudden you need to finance the repairs because the seller's not willing to do it in this market. They just don't need to, and they're not going to.
Well, what's cool about that is you mentioned very early on when we were talking about this is you're calling the listing agent, right? And you're establishing them with them like, look, I know the neighborhood. This home needs some work, right? And so I'm hoping that I'm working with a realtor that brings you a buyer, and or you consider me if you have a buyer, that comes to you and double dipping. But if I'm not engaged, and you find that there's a deal, that is going sour because of this, and that other originator isn't talking about renovation, keep me in your back pocket. Call me. I can save the deal if you pull on Reno. Yeah, that's cool, man. I like it. All right. So trends in our industry. So we just kind of talked about inventory. That was just one trend, but you and I have just in passing have had other conversations in general about what's going on in our industry with like aging population, and now ADUs are hitting the market. Just kind of crazy stuff.
Yes.
Can you talk about just the other kind of that's almost demographic, sociological changes and trends. Can you talk about that a little bit and where renovation fits in?
Yeah. So essentially, we'll touch on those as well. We're seeing a jump in accessory dwelling units, right? They call it different things in different parts of the country. In-laws, ADUs, she sheds, coach houses, things of that nature, where it's an actual living unit, right? Where kitchen, bathroom, living room, dining room, everything you need. But it's either detached or attached to the home. And the reason we've seen this trend is because, well, first, thank you to Fannie, because they identified the housing shortage and they knew that this was a needed product. So they allowed us to do this with a renovation loan. But we're seeing families, because of COVID, they're staying together, right? You're seeing either the parents are with the children maybe went to school, came back, or whatever their situation is, but you're seeing the family unit tighten up and they need more space. And so whether it's attached to the home or whether it's detached and it's an accessory dwelling unit, that's a big trend right now because the housing, the industry needs it. And we could finance the building of an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, a coach house essentially, and to meet those demands, whether it's a purchase, we're seeing a lot more of it on refis.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where they can't, maybe they're out there and they just their family's growing, but they need to stay together right now, right? They're relying on each other. And so the ADU is a big thing moving forward. The other thing you brought up is a trend we're going to see really pick up in the next couple of years. And it's called aging in place or age accessible. And you're seeing our older population who've been in their home for 20 years, or whatever the case is, they don't want to move into a living community, an elderly community. And they don't want to put in a lift to get them from the first floor to up to the bedrooms, right? They want to stay in their home. And they want to build out a master bathroom and a master bedroom on the first floor. And that's going to be a growing trend that we're just starting to see right now. And good for them, right? I mean, they don't want to have to go up 2 flights of stairs, but they don't really want to leave the house, right? And the reason I think you're starting to see that, this whole what we've all gone through in the past year, Shane, has really changed people's thinking, the way they process and evaluate. So that's
when you see that. So let's talk about first off. I love that you said she shed. That commercial is the most amazing. My kids, it's so good. But the aging population, is it with that people staying in their house? So that's your past clients.
That's right.
And what's the marketing strategy on that? Right. Because you're not looking at people's dates and saying, look, you're above a certain age, so I'm going to market you this. Like, how do you get the word out on that? Because a lot of people might not even know that's an option, right? And you're kind of consulting them and coaching them based upon what you know is going to be their emotional need. How are you getting the word out on that? Or is it just your marketing? Are you leveraging the realtor that you're partnering with to begin with? What's the strategy there?
Well, so that's a great point, right? First, let me start with the realtor, because you're also going to see the trend where you're going to have people who are going to be looking at ranch style homes, right? Where they're looking for that 2,000-3,000 square foot home where all the bedrooms are on the first floor, right?
Yeah.
Those homes are going to become more valuable to that older generation. The way to market it, quite often you'd be surprised that having a conversation, obviously if your past client is of that age now and it's a concern, you can openly ask that. When you're talking to your customer at least yearly and asking about what what the future holds for them as so far as their goals and objectives, they'll tell you, well, we may sell, we may do this, we may do that. And as you get to know your customers, you should already know that's going to present itself, but it's also a conversation you can have with your younger customers, right? Who are now at that point where they're starting to be concerned about their parents, right? Their parents' care and their long-term needs, right? And, my parents might sell their house. They might move in with me because, it's colonial and they can't get up, whatever the case is. So those conversations are really easy to have. You just got to make it a part of your annual checkup or understanding, the dynamics, and they really present themselves once you open up that door, and that's how you market it. It's really, guys, it's not so much a marketing piece, so to speak, as it is an open and honest conversation, and it's a conversation that they'll appreciate, and it's a conversation that the realtors will love, right? Yeah. I've met a few agents now who've put together marketing for the aging in place community, and that they've seen the future, and that's how they're tweaking their business plan and their model. So it's there.
So I'm going to put you on the spot with some of these questions. Like sometimes, for the 5 people that are watching this, yes, me and Milton talk a little bit beforehand, so he knows kind of the rhythm. But I can't help myself from asking questions kind of off stream. So Milt, let me ask you, man, two marketing angles. I got a question for you. The first one is a little way old school, but we've got data availability right now, right? Like I can look up, we've got our marketing platform that lets you do every door direct, for example. Like you can do a mailing route and drop mailers into people. And we're not the only company that has it. Total Expert has that functionality. If you use Total Expert, blah, whatever. But you have the ability now to look up homes off of like last transaction date. And so you can almost find what communities you have people that have been in the home for 20 years.
That's right.
And you can almost take good guesses because, millennials ain't hanging on their house for 20 years. They're not even old enough to do that yet. Mm-hmm. Is there a marketing strategy? And I have no idea. Does every door direct work anymore? Like, could you target certain mail routes where the population has been there for a while and drop that? And does that create transactions?
It would create transactions. I would say though, because of the personal nature involved, you'd rather have that warm conversation.
Always, 100%.
And so, but it will identify opportunities, right? And if you think about what's causing the housing shortage, people are like, I'm not moving. They're just not going to move, right? They're uncertain times, and the families together, and they are where they are now. Some people are moving to geographically, like I want to go to a warmer state or whatnot. So you're going to have places like Texas and Arizona and Florida where where this aging in place is going to be you're going to have a much higher opportunity, right? Than in the middle of Kansas or middle of Illinois, right, where winters are mind blowing. But yes, the marketing opens the opportunity to have that conversation, right? Yeah, and how to identify those. But you'd be surprised, guys, in the reality that we live in now, what a little bit of marketing can do. In other words, it's not about, hey, marketing opportunity to refinance. What you're looking for is a market opportunity to have a conversation. Yeah. Once you have that conversation, maybe it'll be a refi, maybe it'll be an accessory dwelling unit, maybe the kids found something or are looking for something. And so, whereas we used to target specific products, right, or a specific niche, now you don't really need to do that. Not in the world we're living in now. Now you just want to have a conversation, and people are willing to have that. They want that conversation now.
What about and what's funny is I'm doing this live stream on social platforms, right? This is YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn, so people think I'm a social media guy, and in my real life, I'm actually not. So I'm actually sincerely asking this. What about like Facebook groups, where it's like community based? Is there a place, or maybe even realtor based, right? You got realtor Facebook groups that are, the Greater Chicago Realtor Facebook group. And is there a place for an originator to go on there and begin to market themselves within that community that people are going to educate people that, hey, just letting everyone know this is something I do. I know in this neighborhood, homes are aging, so renovation might be something, or I know in this neighborhood, I'm seeing a lot of ADUs get built. If you guys ever have any questions on the product itself, maybe not even marketing your services, just marketing education, marketing the product, or getting educated on the product and what's available in the world today and how Fannie views ADUs, blah, 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 reach out to me. Is there a play there? Do you know of anyone that's doing that?
You know what? It's funny you say that. Recently, okay, so I was unaware really, but there's a lot of subdivision and school district Facebook groups.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that's what I was saying. That's why I don't do it myself, so I'm ignorant and I'm kind of catching up to it. Yeah,
exactly. And you have these like subdivisions And now a lot of it's, they gossip back and forth. You know what I mean? Hey, who's this? And who drove the loud car? And this, that, and the
Bob's
other.
dog is in the front yard again.
Right, exactly. Right. But that is the opportunity right there. And again, it's not enough. You're not going to go out there and blast them, but now you can at least, identify and help. I mean, at the end of the day, you're helping, right? And
just ask a question. If anyone just asks, even if you don't use me, you just want information on what building an extra second unit on your property would be like, I'd be happy to help you out.
That's right. And and they would appreciate that, right? And so, and those groups, I mean, you're talking about a subdivision. It could be a couple thousand people like nothing in one of those Facebook groups. And it could be your group, right? I would start with find out if your group has a Facebook group, or your subdivision or neighborhood has a Facebook group.
Yeah.
So kind of like, Shane, it's kind of like the whole Ring thing, right? Where you get the Ring alert and it's people in your area that are sharing information back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, right? But you wouldn't do it on Ring, of course. But there are those opportunities. There's a lot within the school district. A lot.
Well, and this is the power of being local.
That's right.
Right. This is why being a local mortgage banker matters. Is you can speak to the community as a local resident, somebody who actually cares about it. But at the same time, if you go with this education model, we're relationship based, right? We're not transactional. Right. And so all it's going to take is a couple people to say, hey, Milton, could tell me about it. And then you're going to give them the education. And guess what they're going to do the next time they're talking to neighbors? Hey, I was just talking to this guy and he was telling me about this thing that we can do. And it starts to spread. And you start to own that community for this particular segment. So yeah, no, that's fascinating. We've got to you and I, we got to do some work after this and figure out this Facebook group thing and get more originators doing it.
Let me add one more tactic for both.
Yeah.
For both a loan originator and agents. There's a lot of expired listings out there that did not sell because of the condition of the property. And you can pull those up and call that listing agent and have an honest conversation about being able to, sell that home with those visuals that we talked about earlier. And, there's opportunity there. And when you do that with a renovation loan, that's just another way of creating market share, right?
No, as you said, it's opening up new market in a market where there's not enough of it.
You're bringing value to a relationship, and it's not just about the loan, right? I mean, it's everything the loan carries with it. The community and the value proposition, the quality of life, protecting transactions, things of that nature. So it's a great place.
Did you get a forecast yet of what how much renovation businesses, or how much just money spent on renovations this year is expected? How big is this market are we talking about?
Yeah, so according to the joint housing studies out of Harvard, this year it's well over $400 billion, and up 3.5%, while we're seeing contraction in other industries. The remodeling industry is going to be up 3.5%.
Get some stock in Lowe's. That's awesome. Hey, real quick, and then I'll let you get, man. I appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
COVID, didn't just screw up product with our jumbo markets, with everything else, right? You had kind of pre-COVID guides, and and then post-COVID, and we're obviously opening back up. But renovation also got changed. What are you seeing right now in terms of product, today, of what can be done, what's available, and how do you see that changing going forward?
So renovation specific, guys, I would say, Shane, that the products are still, for the most part, intact. VA took a conservative approach regarding its appraisers and veterans, and they put a hold on our VA renovation loan. We're hoping that comes back, but we totally understand, VA's point in doing that. But other than that, it's business as usual. What you need to be mindful of now is the cost of materials. We're seeing inflation impact lumber and copper and all kinds of things, right? And we're seeing those costs increase. And so we got to be mindful of that as these clients are working on putting together their projections for what they want to do to their house. But here again, COVID has caused some trends. ADUs, accessory dwelling units, being one of them. And I spoke to a customer recently who's who had a recently married, one of their children recently got married. Both of them have careers, and they could not find a home in their price range, and so they moved back. They moved in with the parents. And
how funny.
You're seeing that because in certain instances they have to, and you're seeing that because in certain instances they want to. They want to save their money. They understand what's happening around them and the fear and the uncertainty, and so that's the kind of, it's had a psychological impact, but that opened up other opportunities that need to be addressed. And as any impact directly to the market or to the products, very little.
Good. That's actually awesome. Because it's needed right now, as you were saying.
That's right.
And I agree with you, families. I got a buddy who just built a compound, basically, right? I think 6 units on a big piece of property, which is a little bit more than renovation. Just so his aunts, his uncles, his parents, himself, they could all be together,
That's right.
and especially during COVID, it's been obviously a phenomenal experience for him. But more and more, right? My wife is talking about it. How can we get our families, her family, to live near us and everything else? So, all right, my man.
That is exactly what we're seeing. And we're also seeing second homes. You won't even have time to travel to go look at a second home before it's on market or under contract. Second homes are flying off the market because, people, it's kind of weird. People want to have that refuge or somewhere to go to. I had a friend of mine who bought a place, 150 acres in Tennessee, right? And he was from the East Coast. And I said, why'd you go to Tennessee? He goes, because I was able to get 150 acres and all my kids are going to live there with me. Everybody's going to have a ton of property. They're going to be able to build their home. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And it's really COVID that kind of cleared those things up for a lot of people and made them think about the future like that. And you can do renovation on second homes all day long, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's just human trends, to be honest with you. Parents are, right or wrong, I think of myself, like parents are like way more involved in their kids' lives and sports and, unfortunately vulture parenting, but it creates a relationship. My wife's best friend is, my 14-year-old daughter. They're best buddies, and, when she goes off to college, it's going to be a rough day and it's going to be for both of them, not just my wife. And, so I think you're going to see the way that families are tight knit now and really kind of sharing in experiences. Yeah, just more and more. I think that trend's going to continue. So, Bill, you're the man, dude. Thank you for this. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you, and thank you to everybody. And stay safe. And I'll see you again soon, brother.
All right, same here. You take care, bud. Bye.